You know, when I look back, I have to wonder how they went from Oscar-worthy filmmaking to Hannibal Lecter having antlers on his head. But he looks neat, right? And this is just plain awesome. I don't care what anyone says.
Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle.
Red Dragon follows FBI agent Will Graham as he works to track down a vicious serial killer with the help of his friend turned enemy, Hannibal Lecter. Now I know what a lot of you are thinking, why am I reviewing Red Dragon for a sequel-themed month? And I know that out of all the films that I've picked out for this lineup, Red Dragon is the least sequel-y. But I said in my announcement video that some of the films that I'm reviewing are going to be prequels, and I've already reviewed a couple of them with Amityville 2 and Puppet Master 3, and the novel Red Dragon was already adapted into a film that came out before Silence of the Lambs called Manhunter, but with Red Dragon being a follow-up to Silence of the Lambs with Anthony Hopkins reprising his role as Hannibal Lecter, that is why I'm counting it as a sequel. Now, admittedly, I'm not a big fan of detective stories, with a couple of exceptions like Sherlock Holmes and Batman. For the most part, they tend to bore me, but the way that this film is structured is very smart. It's very fast-paced and engaging, and it never loses my interest. It's fascinating to watch Will Graham's progress unfold and see him get closer and closer to apprehending the Red Dragon Killer. I also appreciate how this movie doesn't have a whole lot of on-screen violence, which isn't to say that I'm turned off by violence in movies. I mean, I enjoy a good slasher every now and then, but you could probably take all of the violent moments that are in this movie and count them on one hand. Let's see, there's someone getting stabbed, there's some shooting right after that, there's someone who gets a piece of his face bitten off and then later he gets burned alive, and then, spoiler alert, there's some more shooting. Correct me if I'm wrong, but those are all the violent moments I can think of. No, wait, there's also someone who gets attacked in an art gallery and then someone else who gets shot. Okay, fuck it, I was wrong. This has been some improvised research from me, Joe Finsternis. Even when it comes to the murders that the Red Dragon is being hunted down for, they never actually show them in full detail. All you get are some worded descriptions and some glimpses of the aftermath. It leaves the audience to put the images together in their heads, which kind of makes it scarier. When you think about it, you don't really need to see him doing these things to understand that the guy needs to be caught. Once you hear about them, you're already rooting for the FBI to catch him, which, if you aren't, then I'm rooting for the FBI to catch you. And the Red Dragon himself is a great villain. Right off the bat, the scene in which he appears on screen for the first time is extremely unnerving and effective, and it's one of the all-time best intro scenes I've seen for a villain, right up there with the Joker's intro scene in The Dark Knight. And if you disagree with me, you can fight me in the comments like a real man or woman, because I don't discriminate. Also, I won't give anything away, but I like how this movie delves into the killer's backstory to remind the audience that, yes, this is in fact a human being, albeit someone who has some serious mental issues. Naturally, Anthony Hopkins is awesome as Hannibal Lecter, too. Granted, he has about as much screen time in this film as he did in Silence of the Lambs, maybe just a little bit more, but he still has enough charisma to steal the show. I actually find Hannibal Lecter fairly likable as far as movie villains go, but at the same time, the fact that he's able to get at Will Graham and his family while he's locked inside prison is pretty fucking terrifying. Now, there is one thing about this movie that, as an audience member, you'll have to overlook, which isn't necessarily a flaw so much as it is just nature, and it's the fact that between the making of this movie and Silence of the Lambs, over a decade has passed. Anthony Hopkins has gotten older, and you can notice it. Still, he's pretty threatening for an old man. If old age didn't stop the guy from Don't Breathe, it's sure as hell not gonna stop Hannibal Lecter. By the way, if you're wondering about the weird noise you may have heard at the end of that clip, my house is haunted by my girlfriend who talks a little too loudly on the phone. In the end, as long as you can get over the effects that time has had on Anthony Hopkins, as well as your anger over the fact that I'm not technically reviewing a sequel, Red Dragon is easily one of the best movies that I have reviewed this month. The best compliment that I can give it is the fact that at the end of the movie, I really wanted to go back and rewatch Silence of the Lambs. I mean, I've seen Silence of the Lambs before, but I was invested enough to go back and watch what happens next all over again. Clearly, this film comes highly recommended in case you didn't know that by now, and that's all I've got to say about the movie. I hope you all have a good one.